Hello, and welcome to my tutorial on how to install a Condor 3 dedicated server on a Windows machine. In this instance, I'm using a Windows server hosted on FastHost with enough disk space for a full install. You can simply run the Condor dedicated software on your machine if you already have Condor 3 installed. If you're wanting to use a dedicated machine, such as a hosted server, you can either fully install Condor from the installation link you were given, or make a copy of the Condor 3 folder from wherever it's installed on your client machine. Within this copy, you can then delete the .dds and .tga files, as they're only needed on the client. This will save a huge amount of disk space and brings the file size to less than 2 GB. The developers may be adding a server-only installation in the near future, but at this time, deleting those texture files is the only way to reduce space. If you are running the dedicated server tool on a separate machine, you do not need a separate license, as you don't need to activate the software. However, you will need to first run the condor.exe file to add the correct registry entries. Once you have Condor installed, if you're planning on using other scenery, you will need to install the Condor Updater. So head to condor.club, download the installer, and go through the installation wizard as you would on your client. You can obviously skip this step if you're running a dedicated server from your client machine and you've already got the scenery installed. Before downloading any additional scenery, you can save a huge amount of disk space by checking a couple of options in the settings menu. The first is delete downloaded packages after successful installation. You should also check the option for server installation. This installs the minimum amount of files. Now you can select the scenery you wish to install. You can ignore the disk space needed, as checking the server installation option reduces the download from several gigabytes to just a few hundred megabytes. The landscape version does need to be the same on the client as the server. So if the client is on an older version, they'll simply get a warning to update when they do try and connect. For now, I'm just going to install the UK scenery. The next important step is to ensure the correct port forwards are in place, so the client machine can see the server. How you do this will depend on the router you're using, and you may need to contact your ISP if they've put a block on forwarding. You'll also need to ensure the ports are open on the firewall on the machine that you'll be running the dedicated server on. Because I'm using FastHosts, I set up port forwarding through the control panel. The ports for Condor use the UPD protocol, and the ports you need to have in place are 56278, 56279, and 56280. 56278 is for connection to the server, and the others are to enable features such as voice chat. You will also need to ensure the ports are open in the firewall on the machine that will be running the dedicated server. Go into Windows Firewall, click on Advanced Settings. Now click on Inbound Rules. Click on New Rule, select Port, choose UDP, type in the required ports separated by a comma. Now give the port rule a name, apply, and you should be good to go. Now it's time to configure the server within Condor. Click on Condor Dedicated, and this will open up the console. If you go to Edit and Server Options, this allows you to input the server name. It also allows you to choose settings, such as adding a password for a private session, number of players and spectators, etc. This checkbox, Advertise on Web, determines whether or not your server will be shown on the condorsoaring.com server list. You will now need to load the flight plan that will be used on the server for whatever task or race that you have planned. The flight plan does need to be created on a licensed version of Condor. You can create a flight plan as you would normally, using FreeFlight to select the desired options, and then saving the FPL file. You can then import it by right-clicking in the flight plan list area and selecting Add Flight Plan. Okay, so now it's time to start the server. Now, if you get this error, dedicated server could not be started. It may mean you don't have direct play services enabled. If you're running Condor on a Windows 10 or 11 machine, this shouldn't be an issue. But because I'm running a new server, I'll have to enable it. To do this, I'll open up Server Manager, click on Add Roles and Features, then run through the wizard. At this point, check the Direct Play box and click Next to install. And now we can start the server with no more errors. Now, if we navigate to condorsoaring.com, click on Server List and Condor 3 servers. Now, this may take a couple of minutes for the server to refresh. But now here you can see Test Server 1. Now all we have to do is click on Join from a client machine, and it should start up Condor, ready to connect to the server. There is a third-party server management tool called DS Helper by HitZyga Solutions, which gives a lot more options within the server. Once you've installed this software, open up DS Helper, and with dedicated server running, it should automatically detect the server. The server itself doesn't have to be online. One of the additional features you have, for instance, is if you want to be able to start automatically before the join time ends, then simply go into the Additional Settings tab and ensure Automatic Start Procedure is checked. To start the server now, you will do this within DS Helper by simply clicking on the Start button. Setting up a dedicated server in Condor 3 isn't necessarily the most intuitive process. But if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and happy flying!